There's this sort of clown show that's happening in social media and on television. And what is true is that there doesn't seem to be any shame about this among people who used to feel like you had to have some sort of decorum and a sense of propriety and respect for the office, right? So that's been lost.
What happens when a former president is depicted as an ape by the sitting president, and instead of firing back in anger, he remains eerily calm? That question hung over Washington in February 2026, when Donald Trump shared a video on his Truth Social account that quickly ignited a political firestorm. It was posted late at night, buried among a string of other messages. On the surface, the clip looked familiar. It repeated long-debunked claims about voter fraud in the 2020 election, arguments that have circulated in Trump's political orbit for years. But then, right at the end, came a moment that changed everything. For about a second, the video showed Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama with their faces superimposed onto the bodies of apes. As the image flashed across the screen, the opening notes of "The Lion Sleeps Tonight" played in the background. It was brief, it was jarring, and it was impossible to ignore. The imagery carried a heavy historical weight. For centuries, racist caricatures have compared Black people to monkeys and apes as a way of dehumanizing them. That trope is deeply embedded in Western history, used in propaganda, in minstrel shows, in segregation-era cartoons. So when that imagery appeared on the social media account of a sitting president, the reaction was immediate and intense. The backlash spread quickly, across cable news, across social media, across Capitol Hill. At first, the White House brushed it off. Officials described the video as just another internet meme. They suggested critics were manufacturing outrage and urged reporters to focus on what they called more substantive issues. The implication was clear. This was being blown out of proportion. But the criticism didn't fade. It intensified. Democrats condemned the post. Civil rights leaders called it offensive and dangerous. What made the moment especially significant was that some Republicans also expressed discomfort. While not all were vocal, there was enough unease within Trump's own party that the story refused to die down. About 12 hours after it first appeared, the video was deleted. A White House official said it had been posted erroneously by a staff member.
Mr. President, a number of Republicans are calling on you to apologize for that post. Is that something you're going to do?
No, I didn't make a mistake. I mean, I look at a lot of thousands of things.
The following day, Trump addressed the controversy directly. He told reporters that he had not watched the video in its entirety before it was shared. According to him, he had viewed the beginning portion, which focused on election fraud claims, and then passed it along for posting. He said he had not made a mistake. He declined to apologize. While he stated that he condemned the racist imagery at the end of the clip, he maintained that the responsibility lay with a staffer who had failed to screen the entire video. That explanation immediately raised eyebrows. The video was just over a minute long. The offensive image appeared at the very end and lasted roughly 1 second. Critics pointed out that Trump has long been known for personally posting and reposting content on Truth Social, especially late at night. His social media presence has been a central part of his political identity, unfiltered, confrontational, and often provocative. Given that history, many found it difficult to reconcile the claim that such a short video had not been fully reviewed before being shared. But what made this moment especially striking wasn't just the backlash from Democrats or civil rights groups. It was what happened inside the Republican Party. The reaction there was unusually fast and unusually public. Senator Tim Scott, the only Black Republican in the Senate and someone who has frequently aligned himself with Donald Trump, didn't hedge his words. He described the post as the most racist thing he had seen from the White House and urged that it be removed. That kind of statement, coming from a close ally, carried real political weight. And he wasn't alone. Other Republican lawmakers, including senators and House members heading into competitive 2026 midterm races, also called for the video to be deleted. Some went further and said an apology should follow. Behind the scenes, several reportedly contacted the White House directly to express concern. For a party that has often avoided publicly rebuking Trump, this episode marked one of the clearest intra-party breaks in recent years. It was notable not just for what was said, but for who was saying it and when. With midterm elections approaching, many Republicans were keenly aware of how racially charged controversies can affect suburban voters and independents. According to reports, Trump was privately frustrated. Not necessarily about the video itself, but about lawmakers who criticized him publicly instead of bringing their concerns to him behind closed doors. That detail is telling. The irritation appeared to center on party loyalty and optics, rather than the substance of the controversy. And despite the backlash, there were limits to the accountability. The unnamed staff member blamed for posting the video was not publicly disciplined. No formal apology was issued by the president. The video was deleted, yes, but the broader posture remained unchanged. For critics, that sequence felt familiar. They argue that this wasn't a one-off mistake. It fits into a longer, well-documented pattern that stretches back years.
You are not allowed to be a president if you're not born in this country. He may not have been born in this country.
When the White House made the president's birth certificate public 2 weeks later, Trump questioned if the document was real.
Even before he entered the White House, Trump became one of the loudest promoters of the false birther conspiracy theory, questioning Barack Obama's birthplace and legitimacy. That episode helped launch his political ascent, energizing supporters while drawing accusations of racial animus. It established a template: provocative claims involving Obama that dominated headlines and polarized the country. And the pattern didn't stop there. During the 2016 campaign, Trump shared an image of Hillary Clinton against a backdrop of cash marked with a six-pointed star. Imagery critics said echoed anti-Semitic tropes. After backlash, the image was replaced. In 2017, as president, he reposted inflammatory anti-Muslim videos from a British far-right account, even though the White House later acknowledged the content hadn't been verified. In 2019, he told 4 non-white Democratic congresswomen to go back to the countries they came from, despite 3 of them being born in the United States. He reposted a video that included a white power chant, later saying he hadn't heard that part. He has also shared altered images portraying Democratic leaders in racially stereotyped ways. Across these moments, a pattern emerges. Controversial content appears. Public outrage follows. Responsibility is minimized or deflected, and then the cycle moves on. Over time, this has created what some observers describe as outrage fatigue. The steady stream of provocative statements and social media posts can overwhelm the news cycle, often overshadowing substantive policy debates. That dynamic has led some analysts to argue that controversy itself functions as a political tool, a way to redirect attention, reshape the conversation, and dominate the media landscape on familiar terrain. At the time of the Obama video controversy, Trump was facing mounting scrutiny on several fronts. Polls indicated declining approval ratings. Questions persisted over economic challenges, including affordability concerns. His administration's aggressive immigration enforcement operations had drawn criticism in several states. The release of additional documents related to convicted financier Jeffrey Epstein had renewed uncomfortable headlines. Abroad, tensions lingered over diplomatic disputes and ambitious foreign policy proposals. Against that backdrop, the racist imagery in the video became the dominant national conversation for days. This pattern has been described by some commentators as a perpetual distraction cycle, a strategy of layering controversy upon controversy to overwhelm media bandwidth and fragment opposition focus. Rather than deflecting with positive news, the approach often introduces new flashpoints that crowd out prior criticism. Whether intentional or instinctive, the effect can be the same: a reset of the public narrative. But beyond political strategy lies a deeper question about discourse. The presidency carries symbolic weight. Historically, occupants of the office have been expected to uphold certain norms of decorum and restraint, even amid fierce partisan battles. For many Americans, the imagery of the Obamas as apes represented a crossing of a line, not simply a political insult, but an echo of a dehumanizing past the country has struggled to overcome. It was into this charged atmosphere that Barack Obama chose to speak, not through a press conference, not through a combative rebuttal, but in a long-form podcast conversation.
Just days ago, Donald Trump put a picture of your face on an ape's body. How do we come back from a place that we have fallen into?
There's this sort of clown show that's happening in social media and on television. And what is true is that there doesn't seem to be any shame about this among people who used to feel like you had to have some sort of decorum and a sense of propriety and respect for the office, right? So that's been lost.
Days after the video was removed, Obama appeared on a 47-minute episode with political commentator Brian Tyler Cohen. When asked about the racist video, he did not mention Trump by name. He did not describe the video in detail. Instead, he addressed the broader tone of American political discourse. Obama observed that the level of cruelty in public life had escalated to a point unseen in recent decades. He suggested that much of the behavior dominating social media and television resembled a clown show. He remarked that there appeared to be little remaining sense of shame among officials who once felt bound by decorum and respect for the office they held. While acknowledging that such behavior generates attention, he characterized it as a distraction from substantive issues. Importantly, Obama framed his response around the American public rather than his personal grievance. He expressed confidence that most Americans still believe in decency, courtesy, and kindness. He predicted that ultimately, the electorate would render its own judgment. The reaction to Obama's remarks was immediate. Supporters praised what they saw as composure and class. Commentators noted that he did not retaliate with insults, threats, or demands for punishment. Instead, he elevated the conversation to questions of democratic norms and civic culture. Even some critics conceded that his tone contrasted sharply with the controversy that prompted it. During the same interview, Obama addressed other national issues, including immigration enforcement tactics and the future direction of the Democratic Party. He called for robust debate within his own party ahead of the 2028 presidential election and suggested that generational change can strengthen political movements. By widening the scope of the discussion, he effectively reframed the episode not as a personal attack, but as part of a larger conversation about the country's political health. The juxtaposition was stark. On one side, a president defending a social media post he said he had not fully watched, declining to apologize, and criticizing those within his own party who spoke out. On the other, a former president declining to engage in name-calling, instead emphasizing civic norms and public accountability. Yet perhaps the most consequential dimension of the controversy lies in what it revealed about accountability. In American politics, apologies have often functioned as punctuation marks, signals that a controversy has run its course. In this case, no apology came. The post was removed, blame was shifted, and the news cycle moved on. But the images lingered in public memory. For many Americans, the episode was less about 1 second of video and more about the boundaries of acceptable conduct from the nation's highest office. It raised enduring questions. How much provocation becomes normalized over time? When does desensitization give way to a breaking point? And what does it say about a political culture when racial caricature becomes a partisan flashpoint rather than a universal red line? Obama's response did not attempt to answer all those questions directly. Instead, it offered a model of contrast. Without naming his successor, without re-litigating the insult, he redirected attention to shared values and institutional integrity. Whether that approach resonates more broadly will ultimately depend not on podcast downloads or viral clips, but on voters themselves. In the end, the controversy surrounding the racist video did more than spark outrage. It illuminated the divergent ways two presidents, one current, one former, navigate crisis and criticism. One denied error and framed the episode as overblown. The other declined to personalize the attack and spoke about decency. The images that flashed across social media lasted only seconds. The debate they triggered may endure far longer. But what if that wasn't even the biggest controversy? Because in February 2026, Trump didn't just spark outrage. He launched what could become the largest deregulation move in modern U.S. history. A decision so sweeping, critics warn it could reshape America and carry consequences far beyond its borders. So what exactly did he do? And why are experts saying the impact could ripple across the planet? Watch this video to find out.